Hello everyone and welcome to Java Kickstart. So this is the fourth episode in a video series aimed to help you learn the basics of Java. And so in today's episode we're going to cover the different types of loops that you might find useful while programming. And so again, like all of our videos, it's based off of Absolute Java by Walter Savtich, and we'll get right into it. So, just as a recap from our last video, we discussed conditional statements in which we looked at the Boolean and then we looked at logic operators as well as the if, the else if, and the else statements. And we just looked at how to use them, when to use them. And if you didn't watch that video, it's very essential for the next video. And so I highly, for this video here, so I highly recommend you go back and watch that if you haven't yet. So, loops. Okay, so loops is a very useful an important tool to have in Java. So let's take a hypothetical example with factorials. So if you don't know what factorials are, it would look like this, which you have the 5 and then the exclamation mark. And what that would mean is you're doing 5 times 4, let's format that properly, times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Okay. And then that can go for any number. So if I put 6, it would just be 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 and so forth. So this is when loops can become very useful, in which you need to do the same thing over and over again, right? You don't want to have to like keep on, writing that same line over and over and over again. And so this is what makes loops very useful, is it does all that for you. And so there's two types of loops. There's the while loop and the for loop. So the first thing we're going to cover is the while loop because it's the easiest. So how its syntax is, it's while and then it's a condition and then you have the two curly braces. So right now I have it while true, and so what's going to happen is this is just going to run indefinitely. It's just never going to end. But if I were to put a condition, so let's before we get into factorials, because that one is a little bit difficult, we can look at let's say int sum equals 1, and then let's go while sum is less than 10. We're going to have sum plus 1. Let's go sum equals sum plus 1. Okay, and so and then let's also print it at the end, system.out.print sum. Okay, and so that is going to give us a final value of 10. So instead of going sum plus 1, sum equals sum plus 1, and then just like writing that over and over, this does it for you, and it just makes it so much easier, and you don't have to go through, the pain. Now, if I were to put sum is less than or equal to 10, then we'd just get 11, because when it's still 10, it's still, able to go into that while loop and loop again. Okay, and so that's a good thing to know for the while loop, but when we look into the factorials, there's a lot more that has to go on now, right? And it's difficult to make it work with a while loop, though it is possible. And we will do it first, and then we'll introduce the for loop, because it just is a lot easier to do it that way. So let's go let's just say value equals 6, and then let's get rid of all of that. Okay, so we will just keep it. Okay, so let's redo the while loop so it's nice and clean. Okay, so while, okay, we want to take, so the best way to do this is you have 6 values, right? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and so while let's introduce you're gonna have to introduce a new value. So while I equals 0. Okay, so while I is less than 6, okay, then we're going to want to do a let's also introduce a new value. So int multiply also equals 0. Okay, so multiply is going to equal the value times I, and I should actually start at 1. Sorry, it should not equal that. So okay, so how it's going to work now? So we're going to have value no, that's wrong, sorry. Should be value times value minus 1, and then you also minus I, sorry. And then you want to have your brackets for bed, just because it follows bed mass as well, and then have this starting at 0. Okay, so we're going to have value, okay? This is 6, all right? And then we're going to have 6 times 6 at first. No, that should be 1, sorry. Okay, we're going to have 6 minus 1, which is 5, okay? This is going to loop. Well, now we need to make I be 1 less, which we can do it by simply doing that, okay? But then we still have another issue, and that this is still going to be 6, which is not how we want it, okay? So this is where the for loop becomes very useful. But before we introduce any of that, okay, how it would work is you have 6 times 5. Okay, great. Now it's going to be 6 times 4. That's wrong. So how it should be is you take the multiply, and then you multiply by that. So you want to go multiply, okay? And then multiply should equal your value, okay? I'm trying to introduce this as slow as I can because it's a very complicated thing to have. And so we're going to have multiply, which equals 6 right now. And then it's going to be times by 5. That's going to be equal to 30, okay? And then 30 is going to be multiplied by the value minus, so it should be minus 2 now, which is going to be 4. And then that is going, and then it just keeps going that way, okay? And then let's also just print multiply. There we go. Okay, when we do that, we get 720. Okay, so if we go 6 factorial, we get 720, exactly as needed. Okay, an much easier way to do this is to do it with a for loop. So a for loop is similar to what we did with the while loop, but just so much easier. So first thing, you want to introduce a value. And so since we have I here, I'm just going to change that quickly to j. Okay, there we go. Okay, so int j, int I equals 0. Okay, so we're introducing a new variable called I, semicolon. I is less than value, so this can go for anything, and then I plus plus, okay? So what happens, okay? So with the while loop here, okay, it's checking, is j less than 6? Yes, it is. Okay, let's run this. Okay, we do whatever we want here, and then we add the j. Okay, so this, if we ignore this aspect here, it's doing the exact same thing, but it just does it for you rather than you needing to write it. And this could become very useful. Like, this is a pretty simple example with the factorial, but it could be a lot, it's much easier when you, to do more complex, more complex, programs. And so this will do it for you as well, okay? And that, we're just going to cancel this here. There we go. And so instead of having the j++ down here, we're just going to have the I++, and that does it for you. And then it checks all of those values for you. And it's just, it's a lot easier to do. And let's look at the names of this. So this is, you want to declare a variable, then this is the termination condition, and then this is what you want to be done every time it goes through. You don't need to have it. You could remove it, but there's no point in doing that. There are, in that case, just use a while loop. So you'll notice that, as you get more complex with your code, and just, there was a mistake made. There was 0 written here. That should be a 1, similar to how we had it up here. And when we do run it, we'll get 720. And so now you're introduced to the for and the while loops, two very, very important concepts to have. They're just super useful, incredibly important. You have to know these. So if you don't quite understand it, I'd recommend you watch this again or read the textbook version of it. But this is essential. So make sure you understand that, and we'll see you in our next episode.